Guys, how you doing? Welcome back to a brand new video. Simon down here at Sanford Springs Golf Club, and last week I did a video on the top 5 drivers for around £100 or under £100, and how it changed as well from a previous video that I did very similar 2 years before that. So I thought I'd do exactly the same challenge but with the irons, and trying to grab a decent set of irons at the moment for under or around £100. Well, I don't need to tell you how difficult it is. So let's recap my list of irons that I went through 2 years ago. Almost 2 years ago from today. G10 was my forgiving set, and again, these now doubled in price easily. If you're getting a G10 set of irons, and I could probably say, by the way, my original list, my going into 2020 list, if you can get any of those irons for around £100, you're doing incredibly well, and that's an absolute steal, and you should go and buy them for the same reasons that I suggested back then. However, I feel like I need to update this list, give a few more alternatives, go with a few lesser known brands for you guys that are just starting, dabbling with golf, think you like it, you want to start buying your first set of clubs, but also you don't want to spend £300 on irons that are near on 10 years old. So unlike my 2019 video where I did blades, muscle backs, cavity backs, unfortunately I haven't got that luxury at this point. £100 set of irons is basically anything within the last 40 years, but I do think that I have found some decent gems. But I'm going to tailor my list compared to that list more for the beginner. I think that is what everyone is looking for around the £100 budget at the moment. So therefore, because my 2019 list is essentially just doubled in terms of value, I need to think outside the box. And also, I'm not necessarily going to put any blades or advanced players clubs in this list. I'm looking at pure beginner to intermediate. You guys that just started that only want to spend £100, and that's exactly how I'm going to tailor my list. Unbranded, forgiving, reasonably good looking, reasonably modern. I mean, there's only so far I can go until we start spending 300 quid. Okay, number one, we have the Mizuno MX20 irons, or Mizuno T-Zoid for that matter. The reason I like the MX20 T-Zoid is because it is still a good enough iron that majority of amateurs, when they start this game, can pick it up, play with it, get the same level of feel and forgiveness. Now, the thing that lets down pretty much all the T-Zoid range is it doesn't have the same kind of elegance as a traditional Mizuno iron that you will see in today's market. Therefore, the price isn't there. So it probably doesn't get the higher rating when it comes to aesthetics, but if you're just looking for something that's going to be reliable, good feeling, forgiving, I can't see why you can't look past the MX20. And also, there's not going to be that much competition for them. The price is going to stay down. You should be able to find relatively easy sets. But one of my biggest pieces of advice is, not only for this set but for all the others, is try and pick one that looks like it's got decent grips. At least they've been changed once since they were made way back when, not got the traditional Mizuno grips on when they were first built, because unfortunately your new set of grips are going to cost more than the irons themselves. So not only for the Mizunos but for any of the clubs I'm now going to talk about, at least try and see if they've been replaced once. In number two, I have to go with one of my favourite budget brands from the UK, Ben Ross. I even put them in my top £100 drivers, the modern driver, whereas Ben Ross just make good reliable clubs, especially for the beginner. There's a few other ones in this list that you could probably not get necessarily as big of a cavity back, i.e. not as much forgiveness and tiny bit more swaying to that control side, but when it comes down to just good old-fashioned cast headed forgiveness, Ben Ross with either graphite steel shafts with relatively decent aesthetics as well, relatively new grips, as these clubs, even though the £100 mark have only been out 2-3 years, you're always going to get a good deal, and there's always going to be quite a decent amount of stock out there. Whether you're going down the HTX option or you're going down the Rip Speed option, it really doesn't matter. It's the same club with a different badge on the back of it. In number three is probably one of the more underrated and more up and coming brands that I see that people are going to be playing with, especially in the UK, in the coming years, and that has to be Wilson Staff. Some of the irons that they brought out recently look phenomenal, but the price does reflect it, and if we were doing the top £300 budget sets of irons, Wilson would be very much at the top of that list. But we're looking at the £100, and Wilson hasn't always had it there with the irons. I mean, I'll show you the Wilson Staff DI9s the other day with the fat shaft. They're not necessarily something to be desired, But through that transition period to where they are now and where they were, you do have some decent sets of irons for around £100. And what better model of iron should you be looking for than the D100? I think it's the perfect crossover between old Wilson and new Wilson without necessarily being absolutely hammered and sought after by a lot of golfers. I think it's going to give you that level of forgiveness, as well as keep the modernisation of aesthetics and technology, decent grip, shaft, you name it. I'd say Wilson Staff and then the Ben Ross are very much in that same kind of category, and there's no right and wrong between either of them, and it's going to be down to personal choice or where you can find the better bargain. Now, number 4 is for more of my old senior players that have just started this game, potentially 60 years and above, and going to start at the graphite shaft option. You're going to get great value clubs. Graphite, forgiving, high launching, potentially a tiny bit shorter in length as well, is going to just help give you that kind of control as well as height and distance. Yonex, major brand, huge brand, just doesn't seem to get the love for whatever reason, and I think they're heavily underrated, especially in that slower swing speed area. The majority of them, we're talking the VXF, the VMAS, whatever it might be, have counterbalance grips in the top of them, they're lightweight, and they tick the majority of boxes. Therefore, especially for the older category, Yonex could not be left off this list. And last but certainly not least is my unique club model to fit everyone in terms of aesthetics, head design, shape, you name it. And it's a bit out there, no one's really ever going to think of this, and I'll be surprised if you even are playing with these. But for around £100, maybe a tiny bit more, if you can stretch another £20–30, we're looking at the Cleveland Tour Action irons. They look class, they look timeless, they look sleek, black. They're going to be good for not only your high handicapper, but also coming down to that mid handicapper range. These aren't massive cavity backs, but also at the same time they're not blades as well. Personally, for me, major golf brand. For me, I've had the chance of hitting these in the past, and for around £100, I think it's just a good experience, something a bit unique and something a bit different that you can have in your bag that no one else is really going to have. So for me, my last spot has to go to those Cleveland Tour Action irons. So guys, there you have it. There's my top 5 sets of irons for under or around £100. It's quite a small budget. You would have got a lot more 2 years ago for £100, but it's quite a small budget. But when I'm looking at these sets of irons, I want you guys to see what I'm trying to find. Forget the brand, look at the head, look at what you're getting, look at the shaft, look at the grip, because the majority of these clubs have exactly the same components than the big boys, just not the badge on the back of it. And you can save yourself a lot of money when you start this game, learning what you want, when you want to spend that money on your favorite brand, which I am all for, but at least you'll be making the right and better decision. Hope you enjoyed this list. Let me know how I got on. Let me know if I've missed any. If you wouldn't mind liking this video, subscribing if you're new. Catch you guys there.